The third Sunday of Advent is supposed to be a bright spot in a somber season. Now, people disagree if Advent is supposed to be really penitential or not. Some churches use purple, the older Roman custom, a sort of pre-Christmas Lent, if you will. Purple, the color of royalty, reminds us of the solemn duty that all Christians have to prepare their hearts for the two pivotal festivities during the year. But in England, things were always a little bit different. You couldn't get a hold of purple dye. In most parish churches, there were no colored hangings. It, after all, isn't a must-have in a parish budget. Some churches only had white for festivals and nothing else. In Salisbury Cathedral, the custom was to use faded black hangings. Since they were dyed with India ink, in low light they had a dark midnight blue hue. So the custom of having blue in its darker shades for Advent comes from there, quite accidentally. But in churches that typically use blue, they often omit the Rose Day because there is the understanding that this is more about preparation than penitence. I, on the other hand, like to bring together the two traditions. I need a Rose Day. Even though it's a mixing of different traditions, different use, as we say, I've always liked and looked forward to Rose Sunday. It's a breather. It's a marker of joy. Just yesterday, I realized that between family and parish obligations, I have participated in the burials of 12 people in 12 months. I need joy. How about you? What is more, I think the blue color of Advent is also really fitting for this kind of year because so many people have the blues. Last year, the World Health Organization published some pretty shocking statistics. 3 million people were treated for depression. 3 million. Now, others were treated for an ongoing problem, and some of them were new diagnoses. Some cases of depression require medication. Others are strictly situational. 6.9% of the American population, or 16 million people, struggle with depression silently. So it's the perfect time for us here in the church to talk about wrestling with depression. In other words, what if the church labored to turn blues into pinks? In the last century, men, I know that just strikes us. Pinks, I don't think so. Men stopped wearing pink. Real men, I tell you, though, wear it. And here's why. Historically, it was a fierce color. It was a diminutive of red. It was used in officers' mess jackets. Or in another way, in 1991, in Peoria, when the Susan G. Komen Foundation started, they started giving pink ribbons as a badge to those who were victorious, those who had survived their battle with breast cancer. Pink is a fierce color. It's empowering. 15%, though, of the clinically depressed, 15%, again, this is according to World Health Organization, die by their own hand. The statistics are really horrific. That's 10 out of every 30,000 people will die because they could not face the blues. Today, we hear the words of Isaiah telling us to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, a prophecy that would be the very same one that Jesus would unroll in the temple, roll back, give it back to the attendant and say, "This has been fulfilled in your hearing." Jesus was healing all kinds of malady and disease. And I have to imagine among those ununderstood things that Jesus healed, those unrecorded things, there was probably healing from depression as well. We're called to bind up the brokenhearted. So ask ourselves, does our Christianity have the power to face depression? And I contend that it does. Am I committed, ask yourself, am I committed to helping a brother or sister who is depressed? Sometimes all that is needed is to relate to people while acknowledging our own brokenness. Nobody in this room right now has it all together. That's part of the human condition. We're all varying grades of being mixed up, which also places us in a unique way to help other people. What if we had that sort of acknowledgement in the church, that our strength was in our willingness to acknowledge that we are all wounded and we are all in need of healing? And we can do that with depression. God works in people. Something we often forget. We get caught up in, well, I'll pray for it. And we should. But here's how God works. God works under something called the principle of incarnality. This is to say, we pray and we act in one motion. When we can't get something done, as our epistle lesson reminds us, He is faithful. We're fickle. We're broken. Some days we have it together, we live our Christianity very well, and some days we don't. But He is always faithful and fills in the gaps. When we pray and act in one motion, He is made manifest in us, and any lacking in what our humble offering is, He makes happen. It is in that model where we pray and act together that He lifts up the lowly. When we pray for the depressed, do we also personally visit them? Do we give them hope? Do we say, as the people in the 12-step communities say, do we share our experience, strength, and hope with them? When we pray for hungry people, do we bring food? These days, we say, act locally, think globally. Imagine if the church actually did that. Go visit the new widow. Bring a meal to the single man down the street. These are very easy ways that we can combat the blues of this season. The Apostle James warns us in his letter that we cannot say, go, on your way, be filled, if we don't do anything about it. That's an empty gesture, and really, quite frankly, an empty prayer, too. And in a few minutes, we will pray that God will comfort and succor all who in this transitory life are in trouble, need, sorrow, sickness, or any other adversity. We know that like the back of our hand, don't we? But what are we going to do to put it into action? How are we going to show up and enact the principle of incarnality? How are we going to be salt and light for people who desperately need us just at this particular time of year? Let's commit this morning to being part of the answering of prayer. Let's act in faith at the same time that we are praying that God will make Himself known. And whatever our humble offering of ourselves is, God will make sure that He makes it great. So today, let's make the day pink. Let's have a day of joy, a day of gladness. For there will always be those around us who will have a blue Christmas. But let's work and pray to change that.